Education on the agenda.
With the Royal Grammar School, Guildford, Dubai, sister school to one of the most respected schools in the United Kingdom, now accepting applications from FS1 to Year 7.
Hello there and welcome back. Right, so we just discussed how we should be teaching tech to our primary school children there with Claire Turnbull, the principal of the Royal Grammar School, Guildford, Dubai. Let's move on to discuss how we can best prepare our teens and young adults for the gig economy. As, of course, it evolves at pace around them. I'm joined in the studio now by Dr. Sonia Ben Jaafar, who is CEO of the Abdullah Al Ghuria Foundation for Education, which is one of the largest privately funded philanthropic education initiatives in the Arab world. It is a great pleasure to have you live in the studio with me. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sonia.
Thank you for having me, and it's a great view from here.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, because up until this morning, there was a huge poster covering the window for Expo 2020, and they have released it, and now we have light. This is one of those wonderful gospel moments. We have light. It's very, very exciting. So thank you, yes, and it is still exciting for us to have guests back in the studio post-COVID. Let's have a little bit of a chat about the inclusion of digital skills at a higher education level. Because I would presume that it was just taught as a sort of, as a natural evolution of education, that it was presumed that they'd reached a certain level of educational standard when it came to digital skills, but those lessons needed to continue. You're about to tell me, I can imagine, that is not the case.
Well, part of it is true, and they definitely need to enter university knowing how to do the very basics, using a computer, a tablet, getting online, especially over the last couple of years where they've had to do a lot of their learning online and getting into their learning modules that way. But there's also another level of it that is in need of work. And that is the evolution of digital skills and what it means in the industry has evolved quite quickly and has been evolving quite quickly and continues to. We have, artificial intelligence, we have UX design that's necessary, agile learning. So there's so much. And when our graduates are actually entering the workforce, when they become, that newest version of an alumni, they're entering the workforce and being asked for pieces that they're simply uncomfortable with because they're busy learning their curriculum, they're busy learning their materials within more traditional ways of learning, and now they're entering a workforce that's very fast-paced, and there's a 4IR revolution that is simply demanding from them things that they are not ready for yet. And so we definitely need to infuse a lot more digital skills upskilling within that university campus, but also all higher education campuses.
I can imagine that happening, oddly enough. I did English Lit. So as you can imagine, I literally there was no contact with tech at all, except when I was writing my essays on a laptop. And do you know what? Quite a lot of people still wrote them by hand 20 years ago. Do you think that the higher education institutions, that the universities are keeping up with this changing face of tech? Do you think they realise yet that they are maybe not preparing young people quickly enough for this gig economy?
Well, we definitely have some universities that are very much ahead of the game. We have the University of AI, for example, in Dubai and the UAE looking forward. But we also have universities that are struggling. It's not that the technology is not there, but the human capital investment hasn't been made with the technical investment. For example, at the foundation, we have partnered with the American University of Beirut in forming a hub there so that they can start looking at their engineering programs and building online courses, because it's not about trying to take that face-to-face experience of an in classroom experience in a course and putting it online. That's not what this is about. It's about really reimagining how we can learn in an online space. And so that's what the hub is doing. And they've already launched a few courses, and they're taking those pieces with us and taking the learning and spreading it through the region. We're also working with 9 universities in the UAE to help them also upgrade their online offerings. And this is in partnership with the Ministry of Education as well. So you have all the right players trying hard to actually move that forward.
Okay, so what if your child has just graduated or graduated a couple of years ago and you're thinking, oh my goodness, but they missed out on all of this. They don't know how to do AI. They don't know I don't even know what they don't know because it's beyond me as well. And there is this, I suppose, there has been this surge in ed tech. So should as a parent, should you be encouraging your children to seek out these courses online, or is that really the responsibility of the employer?
I think that there's a gap that is between the employer and higher ed. It's the responsibility of both, I would say. And as a parent of a young graduate or soon-to-be graduate, I would say, work on understanding their purpose and getting them to understand what they value. The courses are out there. Moreover, what's really interesting is of the digital skills that you're learning now, the half-life is actually 3 to 5 years. So that's a depressing statistic.
It is. So you've got to relearn every 3 to 5 years. Or I suppose...
Or
upskill constantly.
Yeah, so then the idea is really just to make sure that you're doing that in a place of doing what you love so that it doesn't feel like this burden, but part of what you're doing. And then that just integrates into lifelong learning so that you can do well. So, for example, we at the Foundation have launched Tech Up with Udacity, and we are going to be helping upskill 20,000 Emiratis in the UAE to digitally upskill with this program. And it's very specific. And we launched it 3 weeks ago, and we already have almost 500 people registered for the courses. And so people are interested and excited. And some of them are recent graduates.
I have to say, during the pandemic, I had a good 6 months when I wasn't working a great deal. And at that stage, I definitely started looking at potential courses to upskill myself. And, there is a certain feeling of sort of satisfaction in this concept of lifelong learning. I mean, it's quite easy to feel lazy about it as well. But, this lack of digital skills, is it being particularly felt in certain industries here in the UAE?
Most certainly. I mean, we do see a difference between kind of the industries where you do have the physical, the tactile, the in-your-face pieces. But we do have a lot of industries that we thought would stay that way and that have moved. And retail is the classic example that most people can think of. I mean, most people don't go shopping in a store for everything anymore, especially groceries, for example. We've moved our own habits. And so the way, the background to that has a whole different kinds of salespeople around it, for example. We have a different set of individuals who need to understand how to develop the programs that go behind that, but also how to understand the data so that they can take it from data to information to make some intelligent decisions about how to source the quote-unquote stores or what people are going to be ordering so that we don't have those gaps.
I mean, that is what's so amazing about everything going online is that there is just so much data. And people need to learn how to process that. And I imagine there are programs and there's artificial intelligence that can run through this reams of information and then come out with a result that you can then use to better market your products.
Right. But one of the people who I work with and who's actually much more knowledgeable about the details of this in terms of the science of it, once told me, and it stuck, artificial intelligence is only as good as the human intelligence behind it. And so that's what we're about. We're trying to build that human capital.
Earlier this week, you spoke about the importance of strategic partnerships at the World Government Summit, which, of course, was a very exciting event. All the big hitters were there, plus 4,000 delegates. I mean, how can strategic partnerships accelerate this digital gap? How important is it to pair up with the private sector?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things that came out of the World Government Summit was the idea that we simply cannot do it alone. And that's something that's, become very, very evident. The private sector is part of the solution, period. So is every other sector, the public sector, academia. We must work together, but rather than working together in a transactional way, opportunistically, program by program, we need to actually set a strategy and work together. And that's what the Sustainable Development Goals are supposed to underpin. And so the idea behind it is, let's make a partnership ecosystem that makes sense, that is value-driven, where we actually have each other's backs, so to speak, versus just a transactional piece of you're a vendor, and so I need you for now, but I might not need you later. Rather, let's try and get this to come together.
Amazing to speak to you and to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for your time and insights. It really has been a pleasure. Dr. Sonia Ben Jaafar, who is CEO of the Abdullah Al Ghuria Foundation for Education. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Right, up next, we are going to be turning our attentions, interestingly, to universities here in the UAE because they've registered an